let's just jump in.
Okay, sounds good.
And you have a paper and pencil and everything?
I do, yeah.
Okay. So
Check.
imagine you achieved all your dreams. Okay.
Okay.
And I want you to draw your impact at that moment.
My impact?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Whatever, however you take it. The rule is just no words. You can't write any words, but you can draw whatever you.
Okay. Here, I'm gonna put my mic down.
Sure, sure.
How long should I take on this?
Take as much time as you want.
Do people normally take this long?
It depends. Just, yeah, don't worry about it. Just keep going. I got all the time.
Here, check it out. You're gonna be
Uh,
amazed by this work of art. Wow, I don't even feel like you can see it.
I can.
Okay,
Describe it.
okay.
Uh,
Describe it? Okay.
yeah.
So this is the sun. This is
Okay.
a nice beach. I'm chilling with my wife and two dogs. And then I spent a lot of time drawing this plane that was going to hold a banner, but then I remembered you said no words. So
Mm-hmm. But what does the plane and the banner signify? What's in the banner?
it says selling software is cool again.
Mhm. So imagine yourself at the beach with your wife.
Okay.
What opportunities do you want to attract at that point in time? Like, what's the best opportunity that can knock on your door?
Um, so for me, best opportunity. What an interesting question. I don't know. So like the reason you asked, what was the first question that made me draw that? What's my impact after I've
Yeah,
achieved
your
everything I want?
uh,
Okay. The best opportunity. So, do you know what a co-op is?
describe it.
A co-op is like a business that's run by its employees in usually some sort of democratic fashion,
Okay.
instead of like a hierarchy based on how deep should we go into this about like weird
Just
beliefs of mine, I guess.
That's fine. Just
Okay.
there's no judgment here. This is a pure
So
facilitation session. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to listen.
cool. So if I achieved everything like I personally want right now, the next opportunity that I'd be open to like exploring would be uh making a co-op in tech that's like big. Probably some sort of agency because those have a lot of impact. Um, I think people underestimate the impact that agencies have on the market, which is kind of I won't go into that aside, but like I'm pretty confident about a lot of the tech opinions I've been sharing lately that are like not of the norm. And that's because I know the vibe of agencies for the past like 10 years.
Mm.
I've worked with like a lot of them and it was weird. So anyway,
So how is this co-op going to be different? Like, what kind of impact is it, aiming to have at that point? Like, you reach this point where like it's in the zeitgeist now that you're like, hey, you know what? Selling tech is cool. It's the coolest thing to do. Let's do that. It's not, kind of this buttoned up thing it is right now. It's more of like the new artist, right?
sure,
Uh,
yeah.
and then you start this co-op, right? And what kind of impact is it, you know, kind of how's it
Yeah,
impacting the world, or what is it
that's a good
creating?
question.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's a great question. I wish I did more research about what I'm about to talk about before
just shoot from the
this,
hip,
but I
bro.
didn't know it would come up. Yeah. So there's this ice cream shop that's in like New Hampshire or something. And it's a co-op and it's just a like like Cold Stone Creamery or something. and 70% of its employees are millionaires. The ones that aren't are like new hires. Uh, so there's a lot of reasons that that happens. But
Yeah.
most of it is that like profit is stolen from people, and that sucks. So that's the real reason everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. It's so funny about America, like they can identify almost everything, and then I feel like they fall short of the big picture. But
Mhm.
the reason people want to be entrepreneurs is because they want to not be alienated from their labor and see the fruits of it.
Mhm.
And they'll assume the risks that come along with that because they're already risking being like fired at any normal job. So it's like a myth that there's no risk that's assumed.
Mhm.
So they'd happily assume it anyway, even at an ice cream shop, and like it can pay dividends. So if that happens at an ice cream shop, imagine if a large tech agency was run that way. Imagine what it could do for their employees. And
Amazing.
then imagine the like wider effect that would have on the industry that is currently like facing downward pressure from people thinking that they can outsource us to computers.
I love it. So it's kind of like Google, the 20% time in Google was like 100% time, and everybody, all the employees owned Google at the same time. Kind of
Yeah.
is the vision, or am I like off?
Say that again?
So you know how Google has 20% time, where
Yeah.
like one day a week you can build whatever you want.
Right.
But Google then owns whatever you build.
Yes. Yeah.
You want it so that it's like 100% time. Like you just have employees that own the company. They're
Yeah.
supported like kind of with a salary, but
Yeah.
then they also get dividends from the communal, I guess, product
Mhm.
pool, and they can
Exactly.
work on whatever they want 100% of the time, not 20%
So
or
it's interesting that you say they can work on whatever they want. That is one way you could do that. Like Valve, for example, do you know that company?
yeah, the Steam, the
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you know how their companies run?
No, please share.
They don't have any management. Here's the thing, they're not a co-op. That's important. Because yeah, that's a different thing. But they do let their employees work on whatever they want all the time. There's no management. You can just like your desk is on wheels
Mm-hmm.
and you're encouraged to like intermingle with other people. And if you get an idea and two people are passionate about it, you have the freedom to work on it. And then that's how teams are made and stuff.
Amazing.
And that's just how they operate. So that's an option. Like a co-op could operate that way, but that isn't core to being a co-op. A co-op could also be like a dev agency and they have clients and they have to do what clients say.
It's like an
And
ownership structure.
yeah, it's an ownership structure. So usually you get together and you vote on things. And it's funny, yeah, like for the most part, they run like a regular company. You just all agree on stuff, you know, like if the sales team did amazing and brings in a ton of money, and they've been voicing that like they need X, Y, and Z the year before, aren't you gonna vote to like give your sales team X, Y, and Z when they have
I see.
provided
Yeah,
for
yeah. It's
where
it's very cool, this
yeah,
idea.
in another structure that's typically not what happens. They still don't give the sales team whatever. They take the extra profit that was made, they invest that in like R&D or advertising in some other way. Because the goal is infinite growth. But when you run a company that's just run by its employees, the goal doesn't have to be infinite growth. They can just happily
Mm-hmm.
try and make as much as possible for themselves and balance their life with what they want to sacrifice, you know? What a crazy idea. People you talk
I
like
love
this
it.
and people get so mad and it's like,
I love it.
bro, this is what we're talking about.
I think it's a fantastic idea. You know, like it's uh I can't wait to see, happen, you know.
I'd love for
Uh
that, yeah.
yeah, and you're the guy to do it, you're so, kind of easygoing, you're very polite, you're very kind, like you're very considerate, even though you have
The
like
opposite
spicy
of how I
takes.
appear.
yeah, you have spicy takes, and like the image is cool. You know, it's cool. That's the thing. Like you said cool, and you're doing a great job of
Thank you. Thank you.
exemplifying that instead of just talking about it.
Thank you.
Uh, moving on. What is the proudest moment
Of my what? Career?
of your life in general?
Of my life. Oh, um, someone's like whooping out my window. Can you hear that? Moving here was pretty cool. So I moved to Spain. I'm an American. That was crazy. And that whole like year, I've been here for a little over a year now. And the last couple months have been like a lot of work. But the first like year I was here was incredible. Got to do things I never thought I'd be able to do. Um,
What caused that? Like, what made you want to move, and why was that like a proud moment?
Good question. So the main reason I wanted to move, my wife has a chronic illness. She has Crohn's disease. And healthcare in the States has been like a nightmare ever since I've met her. And we met young. Um,
Yeah.
and like even the stuff that, yeah, like I don't want to go super into it, but like
That's fine. Yeah, but like
the
you were
healthcare
like,
industry is brutal, dude.
and
Shockingly horrible.
and you made that decision, and you were like, hey, finally I get to, help my number one guy, you know, and then also I guess you get all this time to kind of do, you know, deep work because you don't
Yeah,
have all the distractions of old friends and all of that, and you
right.
know, yeah, so that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
So we wanted to move for a while because of what I was just saying, but we kept putting it off because it's just like a tremendous effort, you know?
Mm.
Um, and a lot of money.
Yeah.
And eventually, so our apartment flooded with sewage backup, and we had to
Uh-huh.
like flee my apartment while my wife was like going through medical
Mm,
stuff. She was like being fed through a port.
mm,
So we needed like a clean environment, obviously.
mm,
Um, and they like refused to do anything about it. They sent the normal cleaners there with like a broom and a mop. Um, and it just was crazy. We were staying in a hotel, but the hotel sucked. So then I went to my sister's. And then I was like, we're not coming back to the apartment. And they're like, you have to pay a ton of money because you're breaking your lease. So then I had to like do a legal battle to be like, I'm not breaking my lease. You broke your commitment in the lease to like
hmm.
provide a livable place.
Yeah.
And I was in Arizona. I don't know if you know too much about that. That's a horrible state.
Yeah.
But
I just
it's
know
like
Sedona is beautiful. That's about it.
Sedona is gorgeous for
Yeah.
sure. But there's like no, this is so funny. This whole talk has become about like random socialist issues. But
Yeah.
there's no tenant protection in
Okay.
Arizona. So you have to make like a crate, even though there's like sewage and giant holes in my apartment, I need like a meticulously documented case to win. And so we had to hire people to help us with that and spend tons of like a full-time job just documenting our old apartment, taking like thousands of photos with the newspaper in every shot every couple of days to prove that like no progress is being made and stuff. It was nuts.
Brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just
then
to kind of,
when we
yeah.
got when we were done with that, we were like, fuck this, we're going
Hmm.
like that was horrible.
And it was
And
kind of
so
like
hard.
divine intervention to kind of push you in the
Yes,
direction,
absolutely.
you
Yeah,
know, because something happened that made you be like, okay, we've been planning this, we wanted to do this, and now we kind of have the reason to go start the new chapter, right?
right.
And you crush that, and then um because I don't want you to keep in the personal kind of space, because
Okay.
I understand it's like private, um but if you're gonna think about like a second most proudest moment that
Okay.
you're kind of, what comes to mind?
Um, so there was the when I got career wise,
Hmm.
uh when I got hired at American Express, that was really cool because that was like validating. I got hired at that was my first like paid development gig. That was uh I worked my way up through U-Haul as a
Hmm.
manual tester in QA. I actually did phone support for a little bit and then quickly switched to QA and then was like an SDET because I wrote all their automated tests. Um, so I was coding there, but like, you kind of weasel your way into that. And then American Express hired me as a front end engineer. And that was cool. That was like an I made it moment for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah. Because I'm
Yeah,
self-taught. So getting hired by like a huge bank was like people
that's
can't say
awesome.
shit now.
Is there a third proudest moment?
Third proudest moment, career wise, still.
Whatever, like whatever comes to you. It's like your first proudest moment. I definitely feel that. Because I'm married and I can understand how like everything I do is for my wife.
Yeah,
So
right,
I get that. And then coming through with like what she needs must feel amazing, right? And then
for
your
sure.
second proudest moment is like, hey, I kind of proved my skill set in a very
Right,
credible way, right? Like what's bigger than Amex? It's like a
right,
luxury brand. They
right,
have very sensitive situation and they need high caliber people and like boom, they
right,
hire them, right?
right.
And then is there like a third proudest moment?
Launching this has been pretty cool.
Yeah, double
Honestly.
zero for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Talk talk
doing
talk more about that.
yeah. So that was crazy. It's funny, I was actually building another product before, and it was this form solution. Uh for like if you have a contact form on your website or something like that.
Hmm.
And one of the things you pretty quickly want to do if you're getting form submissions is email yourself to be like, hey, you got a form submission. Um, I'm kind of skipping ahead. I was trying to promote this form thing and nobody gave a
Hmm.
shit. Like
Yeah.
absolutely nobody cared. Even people like that are friends of mine and stuff.
Hmm.
So, and I thought that's just kind of how things go. Like you have to really promote a product for anyone to give a shit. And then I ran into what I said. I wanted to send an
Hmm.
email, and all the email providers sucked. So I just wrapped SES with just enough features to send form emails. Like that's the only thing I cared about. So that's all I did.
Yeah.
Um, and I took pictures of it and I tweeted about it. And I was like, does anyone want this? If so, go star this repo. Um, and it got like 100 stars in a couple hours. So I was like,
Amazing.
holy shit. That's crazy. Like people really definitely feel different about this than they have the form
Hmm.
thing. And then I realized like you can probably market the shit out of a bad idea. Or I don't even think the form thing was a bad idea. A lot of people need to run into it too, or like fix that too. So maybe I was just executing on that in a way that didn't resonate. It wasn't for sale the way Double Zero ended up being.
Hmm.
So it was a SaaS.
Hmm.
Um, but so yeah, the form thing, and then I
Yeah, you
talked
got a
about Double
hundred, a
Zero, and it
hundred
got a
repos. Yeah.
100 stars. Yeah, and so then I was like, okay, I should write documentation on how to use this. So I did
Mhm.
that, and then people started using it, and they like reached
After
out to
the
me, and
documentation, or like as soon as
people were trying to
you.
use it. People were like messaging me, being like, "Can you just tell me how to set it up?" And I'm like, oh, "That's what the docs are.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah.
be out in a second." So yeah, I got them out pretty quick, and then people started using it, and people were doing more stuff than emailing themselves about a form. So they
Hmm.
obviously had a bunch of features they wanted. And that first one was built in JavaScript. Uh, and a lot of the features people wanted, I didn't see like a happy path to making in the same
Hmm.
way. So I ended up rewriting it. And when I rewrote it, I like held off on that release until it had all of the features people had just been asking me for.
Hmm.
There were some people I like tested in private with.
Hmm.
And then I launched the open source version. and that like people loved it and people started using it immediately. Um, so I've been freelancing for ever
Mm,
since I've come to, well, before I came to Spain.
mm,
But and freelancing has gotten like way harder than it used to
mm,
be for two reasons. They're confused about digital nomad visas and
mm,
the hiring around that. They can definitely still hire me. I don't need like a visa. I have the visa. And
yeah,
a lot of bigger companies just don't even understand that. And like, I don't know if it's the HR's fault or whose fault that is in a bigger company, but
yeah,
they need to update like
yeah,
their information about that. So that sucks. I've seen
mm,
Paul Scanlon talk about that too.
yeah. So
He's
like,
experiencing it too.
yeah,
So then
that pushed you to kind of like focus on 00 models, or
yeah, basically
yeah,
that
amazing.
plus the economy going down made freelancing pretty hard. So
Yeah.
I was focusing on the form thing for a while actually.
Mhm.
And then 00 just like took all
Also,
the
you're building
attention from it.
simultaneously, like you're building the form thing, marketing that, and then you're also like, this is
Yeah,
my OS, open source software thing,
right.
like this is for the people and this is for my money kind of thing. And then you were like, wait a minute, the or
Yeah,
what was your thinking about that? Yeah.
it wasn't exactly like that. It was just like, yeah, so it's so funny. Like the form companies that exist that are SaaSes are a little less insane, at least the ones I used. I used
Mm-hmm.
like smaller SaaS companies. So when I tried to look into the email thing, the companies that I saw really inspired me to be like, there needs to be a free solution, at least for the level I'm doing right now of
Mm-hmm.
just like submitting it or send a transactional email when a form gets submitted. Like that should be the easiest and cheapest thing for a developer to build. First of all, email is a free protocol. Like SMTP you used to be able to
Yeah.
send it from any server.
Oh, really?
And
Amazing. I didn't know
spam,
that. Yeah.
yeah. You used to just send emails from
Yeah.
your fucking app.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Sorry.
awesome. No, no,
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah.
You can swear.
Okay.
I don't think
Um
kids are watching this.
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how email used to be. And
Yeah.
now that's like before my time. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Old ass. Just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
All the spill.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's just gotten worse and worse, mostly because spam
Mm.
uh has made Gmail and Yahoo be so protective of your inbox, which like say whatever you will, like spam's annoying. So they've got to do that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um but now emails turned into this thing where there's like gatekeepers, and then the gatekeepers have gotten like particularly nasty, I feel,
Mhm.
about something that used to be so easy. So the easiest way I saw to get like as close to that more like old school way of doing it was to just have a simple monitoring service in front of SES. Um,
Yeah.
so I was like that sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Keep going.
I was
Yeah.
like that would be enough for me. So I built that. And then yeah, that was mostly like here's this thing that was supposed to be free all along, as close to free as you can get it again. Because you still have to pay for SES. But and that I thought that's where it was gonna end. But then yeah, people were like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Also I want X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, those are like you're now asking for features that are like, I'm a large company and I send millions of emails, so
Mm.
I need these features. And that wasn't really what the like free version was targeting. It was
Mm.
targeting like smaller indie makers that are
Mm.
they don't want to pay shit right now because they aren't making anything.
Yeah.
But if you're like a business that's successful, like you should pay me for building these features for you. So that's how like the
100%.
pro version got thought up. But I was like, how do I prevent myself from becoming the same weird email companies that I'm obviously not wanting to use? Um, so that's where the idea of just like selling it and letting you push your own came from.
Love
Uh,
it. No, it's it's so like congruent. Like the whole story so far is great. And that's the next question, which is, what is your story?
it's a good question. So yeah, I've always thought of that. Like it's interesting. This might sound vain to a certain extent, but like in high school I became, so it's kind of funny, like my family never had a ton of money, but there were times where we did like okay.
Mhm.
And my sister's husband ended up making like a good amount of money one year, and he helped me buy a hot dog cart to like start my own hot dog cart.
Mhm.
Um, and it's funny, like, do you ever listen to like Gary Vee and stuff? I was really
Yeah,
into him back then and like
he's a cool
after.
dude. Yeah, yeah. He's a
Yeah,
cool dude. Yeah,
yeah. I'm not a huge fan anymore. He's gotten weirder with like the NFT stuff and stuff, but
yeah, yeah. He
whatever.
has he has his like whatever his flaws, but in
I really
general,
liked his
good guy.
original story he told.
Hmm.
And anyway, so I always felt like I kind of had that hustle or whatever, and I was like proud of that from a young age. And then later in high school when I was like 17, 18, 19, I was like in and out of homelessness. So
Interesting.
uh
Was
that
it
was like
what
a
you
sharp
just
turn in my life.
you and your family, or did you just run away, or what happened?
So my sister started raising me, but
Okay.
she's only 11 years older than me. So like that's always been contentious, let's
Hmm.
say. Um Which like rightfully so. Like I,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, now that I'm like the ages that she was dealing with me acting like a shithead, uh I get it. But so a combo of things kind of happened. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go live on my own.
Hmm.
And then the housing market crashed and they
Hmm.
lost their home.
Okay.
So they ended up moving in with her dad. My sister has a different dad.
Hmm.
And so there was like nowhere for me to go back to at that point when shit got hard for me like a little bit later. Um so yeah, that that was a
How'd you get out of that?
crazy.
Like this is a super story. Like what's going? Like
Right.
you're now
Yeah.
in Spain coding up,
Yeah.
a SaaS or whatever,
Yeah.
an app that
Right.
big companies are using. Like how did
It's crazy,
a
right?
homeless
Yeah.
teenager get out of that and start freelancing and doing all of that and getting hired by Amex? Like what are we
Yeah.
talking about
It's
here?
nuts. Um,
Like
so
you don't have to get
it's
into like the too personal stuff, but kind of like the inflection points. Like,
yeah.
you said, your sister kind of lost her house and she went to live with
Hmm.
her dad,
Hmm.
which kind of gave you, safety net, right? And you're like, oh
Right.
shit, I gotta figure this shit out, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, share however much you want to share, but we can also cut this out, if you
Yeah.
want to cut it.
We'll see.
But I'm very interested to know like that those inflection points from, oh shit, I can't go live with my sister anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
what happened then? Like how did you end up getting shelter?
Yeah.
Kind of
So
consistent
it's kind of
shelter, and
crazy. Yeah.
then learning React and all of that, and becoming a boot camp instructor and all that.
Yeah. Um, I'll try and touch on all that. It's a crazy story. But yeah, basically I was like living with friends and doing stuff like that for a while. There were times that I lived in my car. There were times that I didn't have a car anymore, so I like slept in parks. Um, and that was, yeah, it was weird because it's hard to like count. This is something a lot of people don't know about with homelessness. Um, but there's like a level of near homelessness that's very interesting, and that's kind of what I fell into most of the time.
Hmm.
Where when people ask like how long have you been homeless, it's hard to answer because you stayed with your friend for like 6 months until like
But it's
whatever
still, it's
happens.
yeah, but it's still the feeling of security is not there living
Yeah,
with your friends. Yeah,
friend's
so
house. Yeah,
yeah, so
like
like
sleeping in their
shelter
garages and
security
stuff.
is
Yeah,
is 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 the broad
right,
umbrella that I'm interested in,
right,
not necessarily,
right.
oh, you're living on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was mostly like that, like different friends for different stints of time, and sometimes you're like in your car between those and stuff. Um, that happened for a while. Then so what ends up happening is like I had this charge for underage drinking and then
Mhm.
had become an adult and had not done like community service to whatever because I was like a homeless dude.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like I need the community service.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I need the community to serve me right now.
yeah. And it's so funny, like uh just how everything works. Because like when I got arrested, I was not homeless. And by the time I had to like pay this fine because of how the court system like puts you up for months or whatever, um, you like I had lost the little bit of security that I probably could have paid the fine if it was like an immediate, if
Hmm.
the court system was faster. Whatever. That's a weird thing to get into. Anyway, by that time, I get arrested for this
Yeah.
violation of probation for not doing community service. And my sister had gotten her own house by then. So her dad is like, Mister, I'm gonna take this kid in and straighten him out.
Hmm.
And it was a huge help. But
Yeah.
he's like a hard ass, is like
Yeah. Yeah.
the picture I'm trying to paint.
Mhm.
Um, but he took me in and he runs a company where he like does industrial electrical work.
Okay.
Um, so he hired me doing that, like bending pipes and stuff, just like
Hmm.
grunt work that has to do with that, not like running the actual wires through like a factory.
Yeah.
Um, but so I worked that until I had paid off. He had like posted bail for me and stuff,
Hmm.
you know. So I had to pay all that off, and then when that was done, he was like, "Cool, like figure your shit out now."
Hmm.
And uh, I I basically figured out like because I did not want to fucking keep digging holes and bending pipe.
Hmm.
Uh, that like college is probably my best escape from this. So I ended up getting a bunch of student loans and going to college and then living in a dorm. So
Hmm.
like the most security I've had in a while, especially because you pay a dorm like
Hmm.
I don't remember if you pay for like a whole semester up front or a year up front or
I
something,
think,
but it
yeah,
was
something
like
like that.
yeah, I was like I've paid for this place and uh, I can live
Yeah.
here.
Fantastic.
Uh, um, but I went to Bible college of all things.
Okay.
To
Is that like super like secluded? Like, is it like all boys thing?
No, no, it
No,
wasn't.
no, it's co-ed.
Um, yeah, not the
Okay.
dorms, but
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But
yeah, it was a co-ed college. Yeah, it was
yeah.
in Kansas of all
Okay.
places. But
Yeah.
and yeah, so this was like I'm not religious anymore, but like I was
Hmm.
very religious through this like homeless stint.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I was like God saved me and I'm gonna go be a
Bible.
disciple of his. Yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna be
yeah,
a priest.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Brother Levi sounds so right.
Exactly, man. Not a priest, but yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna be like a non-denominational pastor. So
Yeah.
it was
Fascinating.
crazy. That ended up sucking. So like I was smoking cigarettes because I was addicted to cigarettes by
Yeah.
this point, as
Uh,
like many people
yeah.
near the homeless line end
Yeah.
up being. Um, and I got caught. You weren't allowed to smoke cigarettes at that school, and they
Hmm.
threatened to kick me out. And I was like, damn, this is definitely not the place for me to be spending all my fucking money.
Hmm.
Uh, because if they're gonna kick me out over that, like they'll find something eventually. I'm kind of a
Yeah.
deviant.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so then I went to school for economics. My
Okay.
sister had a better house at this time, and
Yeah.
I could stay in their guest room. So I moved back in with her and was going to community college.
Nice.
Um, and then well, I actually knew my wife in high school, but we started talking again. And she moved to LA. I moved in with her.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was doing college online
Okay.
and I was working odd jobs. We were like so broke.
Yeah.
So we needed like to make any money any way we could. And I was working through this app called Winolo. Have you ever heard of that?
No, what is it?
Okay, it stands for Work Now Locally. It was like big in California for a little bit, but I don't think they ever took off. But it was like
Okay.
TaskRabbit, I guess, but more
Hmm.
for companies that have
Nice.
TaskRabbit level tasks, like come pack these boxes or
Hmm.
come whatever.
Cool.
Our warehouse got too many orders, fill these orders for the day. We'll teach you how. Um, so I was doing stuff like that. And that was already interesting because like it was a small startup. So I met the people making the app in this like presentation where they taught you how to work for it. And they're like, I don't know, pretty average. Like they didn't. So I before I have these two cousins that worked for Apple, And
Mhm.
they were programmers in my head. But there I've learned like you grow up with them and they're like
Mhm.
the smartest people around you. So you're like, okay, these are the smartest people around you. I've grown up to learn like my cousins are some of the smartest people I'll probably ever meet in my life. Like they're incredibly talented individuals.
Amazing.
But
Yeah.
like I thought every programmer was like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so I meet these Winolo guys and they're like bros,
Mhm.
programmer types. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. Like you seem kind of dumb, if anything.
Uh-huh.
Not to like call out a company, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
I doubt the founding team's still there or anything. But it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like normal ass dudes
Yeah.
to
Just
me.
regular dudes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked through that app, I worked for this beverage company
Mhm.
that was doing e-commerce. And I met those two dudes. They had me hand out samples for this. And they were like, same thing, just like normal ass dudes, like cutting it up with me the way like my friends would, my
Mhm.
dumb like stoner friends I had when I
Yeah.
was homeless. Uh, so I was like, oh shit, like could I teach myself how to program? And I was in school for economics at the time, and I was like
Mhm.
doing pretty good in that. So I was
Yeah.
like, I can probably do this. So I taught myself how to program, and then I got that job at U-Haul pretty
Mhm.
quickly after.
Nice.
But that was in QA, and
Mhm.
as I said, I like started automating tests and stuff because that's like a lot of what you learn when you try to learn like a traditional programming path. I didn't go with the like now when people try to learn how to program, they're like, I'm gonna be an indie hacker.
Mhm.
That's so cool. Levels
Yeah.
inspired me.
Uh-huh.
And people were doing that back then too, and maybe I fucking should have. Maybe that was where the money was. But because my wife has a health
Mhm.
condition, I wanted like a stable job with health
Mhm.
insurance and shit. Um,
Yeah.
so I was teaching myself like I was reading books on algorithms and shit.
Mhm.
Um, And yeah, that's how you get hired at Amex. Uh,
Amazing. Yeah, yeah, because they want people to know their shit. They don't want
right.
you to be, oh, I built this project. Yeah, they're like, I don't care what
Yeah,
you built. Yeah,
right.
I care that
Exactly.
you know how to do what we want you to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that's great. And like uh we get it from there like Amex, then you move to Spain, you kind of like work on the forum thing, and
for
then
sure,
you
yeah.
work on the whatever, and like boom, so it's that at that point where like big companies were like, hey, can you build these features out, was when you were like, I need to do this pro 00 pro and
Yeah,
like yeah.
exactly. Um, yeah, people wanted an editor, which I just shipped.
Mhm.
People wanted people were asking me like, is this good to send like a million emails? Like, how quickly
uh,
can you send a million emails?
yeah.
I'm like, I haven't done any tests on that and stuff.
uh
So, and yeah, this is the type of stuff you're only asking. Like, if you're sending a million emails, I figured you can pay me $250. Like,
yeah. No,
that's
it's
nothing compared to a SaaS. So
it's amazing. And
yeah.
what are like your superpowers in this business? Like how would you define
Um, I think a couple things like give me an edge, which is like I've been doing front end development for this whole time.
it? Hmm.
That's what I did for Amex and onward. Um, and it's like almost I got hired at Amex in 2017. And like I said, I was technically coding before that. So I've been like doing stuff for like nearly a decade now. And almost all of it's front end work. And I think I think that's funny because I think a lot of people didn't think I was going to compete on like a good UI
Hmm.
because I wasn't really shipping one at first. I just kept like really focusing on the sending infrastructure. Um, and now like with the release of the editor and some other stuff that's going to come, I'm going to have like a visual automation dashboard where you like drag nodes around to like
Cool.
kind of like Zapier or something, but
Hmm.
actually like more there will be more to it. So I think people underestimated how good that was going to be and that it's going to compete. Like, I think my UI is going to hold up with these like multi-million dollar companies soon.
Awesome.
Um, and then like why that's a superpower is because I abandoned the like front end thought that I should have this like interstitial layer that like Next.js provides you where you have like a back end server or like a front end
Hmm.
server, front end for your back end or whatever they call
Hmm.
it. Um, so I went with a like traditional MVC framework, and I
Mm-hmm.
picked Phoenix mostly because it's built for like high resiliency and having the ability to spin up like individual processes and do things like send an email really quickly. So it's like a perfect fit. But then it has this way to like scaffold out a real back end that you would pay like 8 different services for if you were in JavaScript land, or maybe you would be like tied to AWS or Cloudflare at your database and queue level and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously takes, then you can only host it wherever it's built like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where like you can host 00 anywhere you can host a Docker container.
And
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 the
that's
only other
enabled
thing
by
that,
Phoenix.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I can build like backend features much quicker than these other teams because of this like simplified stack. And I use like SQLite for a database and stuff. So I was building backend stuff so quickly that I think a lot of my new followers and stuff thought I was a backend guy. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like gonna focus on the UI for a while, and I'm like, I think a lot of people are gonna be surprised.
I love. No, it's so from what, like, if I'm gonna summarize, right, like the answer to the question of what your superpowers are is you're good at simplifying to get
Sure.
maximum impact, which you did for the backend stuff, right?
Right.
And then you have like some serious UI chops that backend developers usually don't have.
Right.
And yeah, and I think also your
There's
economic
also the
stuff, like
model of like selling it differently.
yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
another like,
The
yeah,
economics chops, I think, also help, like because you understand where the value is and
sure.
who wants it and all of that. So like that's kind of a deadly trio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, I like it. And we're not going more technical,
Okay.
which is who are you serving with 00?
Yeah. So the main thing, like the free version, like I said, I want developers to have a way to reliably send email that's near free. So like my target market is, I guess, people who are learning to code like I was and need to do stuff like that. Um, but that's really the target for the open source free version.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's source is open too. That's the thing people don't like fully understand, I guess. Um, so I could make it so that when you buy my pro version, the code is compiled into Erlang because that's what Elixir and Phoenix compile into, and then I could make it so it's illegal for you to modify that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is what closed source is. Software can be paid and open.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is paid and open. You get the source code. You can modify it however you wish. So that's just an interesting thing to note, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because the paid version, too, is to target developers that want to build large applications now, maybe for a company, or maybe they've got a bunch of users and they can afford to pay $250. Uh, it's funny because like my target user at that case grows a little bit, but the scale is still weird to me. Mostly because like I didn't think I thought people that have like, so do you run a newsletter? Have you ever done one?
Yeah,
They get
yeah,
expensive.
I have, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. After a certain point, they get expensive for sure.
Yeah, like really quickly. Like 1,000 to a
Yeah,
hundred
the
thousand
Beehive is
users can be
expensive
in.
as hell, and
Yeah,
I
right.
don't even have a lot of subscribers. It's just they have like so
Right.
many added value things that is not email. They have like
It's
boosts and
yeah,
promotion stuff and all of that. Like the monetization level is what you're paying for, really. But
right.
just a newsletter, yeah, the,
They're all expensive though, even when they don't have that stuff. MailChimp is expensive as hell.
yeah, they charge per user, which
Yeah,
what you're
everyone
saying
does.
is not what they're getting billed, right, on the back.
Right.
Yeah, and
No,
that's
yeah, no.
yeah,
A user, like if you, because a lot of people have a huge newsletter that they send one email a month to.
yeah,
The users are just like a table in a
yeah,
database. Like they're not incurring any real cost there. If it is, it's pennies. And
yeah.
you'd have
That's
to have
it.
like terabytes of users to
Yeah,
start like, which would be like billions, trillions of
yeah,
people, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
you'd be paying like $100 a month or something.
It's ridiculous.
And they've got you paying $100 a month at like 50,000 or something, 20,000.
It's
It's
ridiculous.
crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like I
So
like what
that,
you're doing, and I feel like is there a future thing where you're competing with with that and just
yeah. So the way there, I think is pretty interesting. I've given it a lot of thought because I really don't ever want to run a SaaS. Um,
why is that? Why are you so opposed to the set? Because there's kind of the open AI, I guess
yeah,
API model where like you're
right.
paying for tokens, like you're actually paying for usage. You're not.
Sure,
It's not monthly. It's not whatever, but you pay for usage, and everything else is abstracted away, right? And
sure.
they're managing all that code. Like, why are you opposed to like usage pay based
It's
model?
it's really simple, actually.
Yeah.
So here it is. How let me ask you, you used OpenAI as an example of a
Mm.
good one. Um, and I agree now they're probably pretty good, but like a couple of questions I think like how big does OpenAI have to get for OpenAI to be happy? To be like, we're big enough, we're done growing.
Well, they're I think kind of venture back, so like that answers your question. Like when you're venture
Right.
back, you want 1,000x returns, no matter
Right. Yeah,
what the cost is, because you're kind of appeasing investors, like
sure.
your
So
thing.
they're not happy until they're bigger than Microsoft, right?
Yeah, the bigger the better, because
Okay. Yeah.
it's investor
Right. Right.
incentives.
Right. Okay. So they've got this API and people are building applications on top of it. And some people are getting rich and they're getting their money and getting out. But most of these people are just pulling a slot machine, feeding
Mm.
money into this monster that maybe, so like the average person isn't going to get this huge $1 million payout, right? And if that's what you're after and you're like going to chase that at all costs, good for you. But like, here's the issue with if you want to hedge your bets, here's the issue with going with the open AI. Let's say you build a business right now and it's making $10,000 a month.
Okay.
So you're like, perfect. This is all I need. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to focus entirely on this. Um, you're now, you haven't made this huge nest egg to do
Mhm.
whatever the fuck you want. And you're completely at the whims of this company that relies on infinite growth to be happy. Um, so they will squash you. Like it's not a matter of if, like they will definitely do it. Um,
I mean, oh, you're
the
saying if you find a use case that's better than their use case using their own technology, kind of,
Yeah,
or
yeah. Like if you
yeah,
build a PDF viewer and you're making 10
mm.
grand a month off
they're
PDF
gonna put
viewing,
up, yeah, they're
they're
gonna
gonna
put up
build it in.
video. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Um, so you can't live off the trickle of something that needs to absorb all the money, right?
Hmm.
You have to cash out fast while it's burning money like the Joker. You need to grab some of that shit and get out. And that's what like the guys that are rich right now off like all the photo AI stuff, they've done that and good for them. Um, but that's not going to be the story for most people. So then you're
Yeah,
like,
so
okay, then I have to be
it's an ethical argument. You're saying
yeah,
for me to feel good about myself, I just want to sell it once, and that gives
yeah,
me the most comfort.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's one of two ways to be a SaaS. You can be like OpenAI, you can have money to
Mm.
burn. It's all venture capital, but then you're tied to that weirdness.
Yeah.
Or you can be an indie hacker, and then you have to support a free tier to compete with these people that are burning money to just get their
Mm.
name out there. You have to, so it's ethical, but it's also strategic. Because yeah, I don't have the ability to host. One of these email companies, they have 100,000, they have over 100,000 users, and they just announced that they have 2,000 paid users. I can't host 98,000 free
Mm,
users, it can't even come close to that. So that's I'm not going to compete in that game. Why would I do that for a game I don't want to play because I think it's unethical? Like it's all of it makes no sense.
okay. And so coming back to the question, which is who are you serving?
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to push back, because developers that want to build small companies and developers that want to build large companies, that's a little too broad for any kind of targeting, you know,
Sure.
because we need to start to get a little more specific, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the free one, I get it. If you, but I feel like SES users or anybody like I feel like SES is the gateway to your
Right.
situation.
Only for
And
now though. I really want to support like a couple other ones.
okay, but for now, it is
Yeah.
SES.
For now it's SES.
It's SES users and anybody interested in SES for the free
Sure.
guys, right? Because current users who use SES, no brainer for them. They're like, oh,
Mhm.
this is an easier way to use it.
Yeah.
$250 is nothing, especially like you're saying, they're doing huge volumes. They're like,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
To wrap it into a nice thing and it's beautiful and makes my life easier, complete no brainer.
For sure.
Uh, so you agree with that the pro one is for current SES users and the free one is for aspiring SES users.
Yeah. So, as long as you're touching AWS, I think you'll be interested in it. Like, I don't think you have to be currently using SES. I think you're probably not currently using SES because you want something like this because SES is like severely lacking. But if you have an AWS account, I think for those people, it kind of becomes a no-brainer because they might see like what SES was lacking and go, oh, well, that's everything
Okay,
I needed, and I don't
this
even
is
have to do the setup because
this is fantastic
that's
information.
done through SST.
Okay,
Yeah.
so AWS users
Yeah.
that are familiar with SES, and then you're saying anybody who uses SendGrid. And who are these? Can you name those companies that
Yeah.
are doing that?
Yeah, SendGrid's probably the next one I would want to focus on. Then there's like it depends.
Who is doing? Who is wrapping SES and charging money? Basically,
Oh, Resend.
Recent.
Yeah.
Recent is doing what you're doing. Like
Yes.
you can compete directly with them and offer a better
They are a
situation than.
direct competitor for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. They are my most direct competitor by far.
All right. Let's keep opening up this like who are you serving kind of question to kind of just
Yeah.
get the complete picture because I like where we went from budding developers to serious developers because that's too broad. And then we were
Yeah.
like, oh, SES users, and you're like, no, SES users might be a sub market because they're already using it, they know how to use it,
Right.
they don't have any problems. The
Right.
people who would be attracted to it are people who kind of are familiar with the AWS uh, offering,
Yeah.
but are too afraid to use SES because it's
Exactly.
complicated. And
Yeah.
then that's kind of one bucket, right?
Hmm.
For the pro, I understand the free thing, but let's just focus on the pro because it's where the
Sure.
money, right? And then uh, that's one group or like two groups, and then there's the recent group of hey, you're paying these fucking weirdos, monthly
Right.
fee, and if your company is gonna last for more than 5 years, like the table I sent you, it's way smarter
Right.
to pay up front once and then have this
Right.
kind of cost structure going forward. Whereas, they kind of penalize you for scale, and you don't
Right.
want to be penalized for scale,
Right.
right? Uh, okay. When you're thinking about those users, right? What are they building in the extreme case? Like, who are those people that are sending millions of emails? What kind of businesses are those?
It's all sorts of stuff. Some people with just a big newsletter and they send often. That's a million emails a month. You got 100,000, you send twice a week or something.
What about Beehive? Like,
Um,
let's say Beehive wants to use your stuff for their backend. Can they? Is
yeah,
that?
I've thought about that. I was actually so I linked to a conversation that was between me and Jesse Hanley, and that's what I was talking to him about.
Yeah.
Was like because I kind of envisioned it being used that way, and I think it can, but not in the way I first thought. So like Beehive is gonna have issues that are very specific to Beehive, right? Um, every business is gonna have that. So
When I say Beehive, I mean all of them, like Beehive,
right,
ConvertKit,
yeah,
Mailchimp, all of these like newsletter
they're all
providers.
gonna have though like even though they're in the same industry, they're gonna have like unique vulnerabilities that they need to like write special code around and stuff. So they will all have like Mailchimp will have Mailchimp issues that aren't Beehive issues, despite them being in the same industry. And that's just what happens when you're sending emails at that scale.
Mm,
So if Beehive built on top of 00, which they should be able to based on like the amount of tests, like how much I was able to send in tests,
mhm.
um, they would not use they wouldn't like expose my UI. And they'd have a layer in between where
Yeah,
they're doing
it's
like
for
spam
their
filtering
whatever
and
mail
stuff.
master in the back end
Yeah,
to
right.
use. Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to explain this to you one time. But that's what's interesting about that is you're like, well, I'm a Beehive user, and he's saying he's not going to compete really with Beehive or really even try to be what Beehive uses. Like, what is he doing? And part of that is like, so those issues that I'm talking about where Beehive has like Beehive issues, that comes from the type of audience they attract, the type of features they allow, how they're sending email.
Is this the bucketing thing that you sent me? Like, is it like
Yeah, it might
the
be.
categorization of the buckets and the spam stuff, the deliverability stuff?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
is that
and
just you can't do it with 00 or have a something
you
that
could do
plays
it.
with it?
Yeah, you could do it. But the thing is, unless you're Beehive, unless you're sending emails on behalf of millions of different other people, you probably don't need that. Like if you're a company, if you're PetSmart, you don't need
Yeah, because
to be rotated
the one
across pools. You need
category
one,
is yeah.
yeah. You want one clean pool for PetSmart, and maybe you have a couple pools because you're like, we send our newsletters, but here's where we send our work emails, and here's where we send our other stuff, just so you can keep your own pools clean. That's the type of stuff you'd use for like doing in 00. If you're at that scale, you could do that. But like a normal company that's below that scale just needs one clean
Yeah, like
way to send
PetSmart. You're
emails.
like a great example.
Yeah,
PetSmart can use
right,
you to send their emails.
right, right.
Ah, okay, so that's kind of where the money is big companies that are sending a lot of emails,
Sure.
corporations,
Yeah,
Forbes 500
yeah.
companies.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of ways I have thought about how to make like recurring revenue off those people. Most of it's just like following the models of other companies that have uh made profit off of open source and you charge for support. Because all of these bigger companies,
Would want
they
support.
want to just pay the dude that made it to come and fucking make sure they're using it right.
That's a fantastic idea. Who's in charge of that decision? Do you know? See, you worked
At
at
a company.
U-Haul. Yeah. Who's
Yeah,
in charge of making the decision of what email provider are we going to
yeah.
use? And then
It'd
who?
usually be like it'd be a negotiation between like the DevOps people and probably someone who decides profit or like what is
CFO.
budget.
Yeah.
Huh.
I said the CFO, like whoever's
Yeah,
making
right.
the buying decision and DevOps.
Yeah. And DevOps, yeah.
Yeah. And is there like a way these people, the DevOps people, like who's the influencers there? Like who's talking to these people, or what are they subscribed to? Are they subscribed to like a newsletter? What are they reading?
Yeah.
Where's their attention? Is I feel like what you
It's
need
such
to
a
be
good
solving
question.
for. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to answer that myself. It's so interesting because like DevOps was it's changed a lot with like everyone switching to AWS and Cloudflare and stuff. Like at U-Haul, we had guys that were like bare metal experts, you know?
Mm.
And then later in my career, the other places I've worked, everyone's like an AWS expert. Um, so I think that's the answer is I need to find like where AWS expert people have like migrated to. And
Yeah, and where their attention
it's
is.
hard because I don't think it's Twitter, which is funny. Because like Twitter is
Yeah, Twitter
very
is.
much where all the front end developers hang out.
Yeah, Twitter. You're finding all the free tier people on Twitter, like
True,
and
true,
it's
that's
good.
true.
It's good to kind of build authority with those people, but it's not how you're gonna make money. Like,
Yeah.
and just pitching it, out of the blue. Double O Levi sounds like a better name than evil, like 007.
Maybe, maybe.
Anyways, but
Yeah,
anyways, moving on. But definitely, the way this scales is not to it. Like the way this scales is the conversation we're having right now. Is these
yeah,
AWS DevOps people, the people who are in charge of these decisions? Where is their attention, and how can we capture their their attention? But
for
let's
sure.
focus on these people, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna call them just AWS DevOps people, or just DevOps. Okay,
yeah,
but that's what I mean is the DevOps in charge in those four
right.
500, right? What are the pains that they're feeling?
So AWS has a notoriously terrible dashboard. Um, so monitoring like any of the services sucks. That's why there's so many companies popping up that are wrappers around AWS, because there's people who can provide a good UI. The other thing is that I'm running into, I haven't like been deep into AWS before, so this is like a new thing I've learned. But like AWS by default is built for the largest scale companies there are.
Yeah,
Because it's built for them and then they just release the stuff they use essentially. Here's the thing. So when you're building for companies at that scale, you make weird decisions. Like you probably want to be able to search a contact list of emails, right? Um, because that makes sense. It's like one of the first things you'd want to do. Um, there's a contact list built into AWS. It's not searchable. Why is it not searchable? Because if you have a billion records like they do, you don't want to search. It's not efficient enough. You need to like
mhm.
figure out another way to do that, or you need to build a database built for searching stuff, and it only searches the most recent records, and then it'll fall back to
Yeah, or you
other
have the plug
things or
and play
whatever.
search
Right.
whatever unit that you fuse it with the
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then you
So
need
you're
like
not
a
afraid of that incentive because you're like Amazon is not incentivized because you're saying the pain point is UI, right?
right.
And that's one of the pain points. The another pain
Hmm.
point is kind of a holistic solution on each one of their APIs,
Hmm.
right? Because they have all these APIs,
Yeah.
but they're just offering the APIs because the famous talk that you want to make a great beer, you don't have to go and harvest and whatever, or create your own brewery. You can just focus on the
Mhm.
flavor and we provide everything else. So
Right.
their strategy is not to compete with those people who are using the
Right.
component APIs. So
Right.
uh, so there's no fear there. And you're saying there's no UI is one big pain point. There's no
Yep.
holistic solution, another big pain point.
Hmm.
Do you have any other pain points you can think of?
Yeah. So so like the set all of their APIs are a bit weird. Especially so say you're like a JavaScript engineer. Um, we're kind of spoiled, I think, like JavaScript developers. Lots of libraries have gotten very good and their APIs are very good. Like not just the HTTP API that you're like communicating to services through, but the API of the like code itself,
Mm-hmm.
like how functions are named and how they'll take options as arguments and stuff. Um, AWS also not that great at that. So most of these wrappers provide another service, I guess, which is like I have a node API 400 And when you're just caring about sending emails and saving contacts, that API is better, especially for JavaScript developers, than using the raw AWS one, because again, it's not built, it's built as components and you have to tie them all together. When you really want something that's just like send an email to this person that looks like this,
Mhm.
I don't like, I've already figured out the headers and stuff. They should be saved in some other application. Um, for stuff like adding an
So
unsubscribe
the
header,
the actual API is a big pain point, and you're like, hey,
Yeah,
there's an opportunity there too.
right.
I like it. We talked about competition, and is there other rappers? Like you said, it's just recent.
Yeah,
And if you're gonna define the differentiating factor, what is the difference?
between me and recent, mostly price. Like and just the model itself. Not only that, I guess, because the model is different and the pricing is different, and you actually retain ownership of your data, you're not subject to like Resend leaked their keys
Mm,
um on the front end, which like let's not give me the benefit of the doubt. Let's say I also am that bad of a programmer,
yeah,
where I would just leak my my fucking
yeah.
database key on the front end, which I think is insane that they did. But let's say I do that, and that's how double zero ends up getting built, and it does something that's stupid. You're still, and people say this is bad. It's like security through obscurity at a certain point. But then if someone identifies that issue in double zero, they still then have to figure out everywhere a double zero is hosted and attack you specifically. Um,
So it's decentralized is
right,
one of those things.
right. So there's like first of all, they're not that great at like just keeping their service running and secure. And I think that would be a differentiating factor. But even if you don't believe in me, even if you're like, he worked for a bank, but he's probably an idiot still, just the fact that it's decentralized is gonna boost your ability to secure that data. Because like so I use fly.io.
Mhm.
Fly.io can give you private networks. So I could have my application, I could host double zero so that it's only accessible through the private IPv6 network that they have. Um, and then only my apps can talk to double zero. So like if you really don't trust that the security is there, you can quarantine the whole app because you own it.
To me, this is like a no-brainer, bro.
Yeah.
Like we have so many different, like you were just price and model. I would start leaning into this risk decentralization. Um, a little bit of your background in Amex, and the how self-hosting can protect you from this risk
Hmm.
situation, because that's the name of the game when you're talking Forbes 500,
Right.
is that they minute risk mitigation. It's all they care about. They don't
Yeah.
care how
And they
cool it
know, yeah,
is.
right.
They don't care about any of this. They just care about how does this, reduce my risk,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I tried to touch on this earlier by rambled. I was saying I was shocked at the size of the companies I'm already attracting at first, but it's really that they like don't care about my marketing at all. They go, "Oh shit, I can host this myself." And they already know what that means. So,
But
um,
for budding Forbes 500 people,
yeah,
they're not that sophisticated. Like
sure.
when you're looking at, that tier between startup land and Forbes 500, there's all of
Yeah,
those companies that also care about risk. They're just not
right.
as sophisticated as those,
Sure.
big companies, or don't have access to that information. And I feel like, a strategy is formed, you know. Anyway, so if you're gonna define like the quality factors of your features, first, what are, like, let's say, top five features, and then the quality attached to that, right?
Yeah. Um, so the main features right now, like you want to see if your emails are getting delivered or bounced or marked as spam. That's like the core of an email tracker. That was the first thing I built when I was talking about making the free version. And something that already differentiates me there, I guess. I noticed that I signed up for a couple of the ones I've already mentioned and others, and something that's happened at almost every company I've worked at is they'll send error emails. Like when your application has a critical error, it'll send an email. And it usually sends it to more than one person because that's like a huge deal. Um, and you want multiple people to be notified. I noticed that a lot of the email trackers out there, of all different levels, resend included in this,
Mhm.
doesn't track when you send an email to more than one person. You send an email to two people in resend, one gets delivered and one gets marked as spam. It's a roll of the dice as to which one it'll tell you happened. And that in my testing, I was seeing multiple times I could have an email that should have been marked like it was spam or bouncing, and I had no indication on all of their charts, all of their dashboards.
Mhm.
And you can get your sending account blocked that way. And mysteriously, they got their sending account blocked in US East 1. So I don't know, you know, I'm not a lawyer, whatever. This is not legal advice. I don't know what happened. This is all speculation. But
Mhm.
uh, like, I don't even think they know sometimes when emails are bouncing. So how
Amazing. So
can they,
detailed monitoring is kind of that
key? Yeah,
quality aspect
right.
for the monitoring. Like
Yeah,
how deep can I drill down? How much information can I get out of
right.
the monitoring? That's great.
Yeah, and I still have a lot to do there. There's still a ton of stuff. Like it's
It's
obviously still pre-release.
yeah,
But I do like the reason there's a lot of stuff to do is because I'm paying attention at that level that other people are just glossing over.
that's great.
Um,
What else? In terms of
yeah.
features and the quality that people are looking for in those features.
Yeah. So I also added broadcasts and an editor recently. Those are like the biggest other like noteworthy features, I guess. And that was another thing, like the people that I was talking to when I was adding broadcasts were like, okay, I need to send a million emails.
Mm,
So I did a lot of testing around that. And it's funny, I've seen a lot of people that are also built in public on Twitter
mm,
that are making email products admit that they're not testing any of this. And I'm like,
mm,
if I'm about to send a million emails, I want that person to really assure me that they know it's not going to crap out halfway through and not have tracked. Like the worst case scenario is it's sending emails and not tracking them, right? But uh there's all these other like interstitial states that are also nightmares. So that was a big thing, like doing a lot of testing, listening to my customers to what they actually need and
and your
building
background in
around that.
U-Haul, like as a quality assurance testing
Yeah,
guy, like
right,
yeah,
right, for sure.
yeah, like amazing. And in terms of the editor, is there anything like what's like the key features there or the quality features there?
Yeah, so there so you're not allowed to say this, but I'll say it. Notion gets mad when you use their name, but it's like a Notion style editor where you use like slash commands and stuff.
Hmm.
It's really cool. It's actually based it uses this library called GutenTap, which is built on top of this other library called TipTap that I've used before. And TipTap is cool, but it gives you like too low level. I wanted to get it in quickly.
Hmm.
And GutenTap was a layer built on top of that to look like the Gutenberg editor from WordPress, which
Hmm.
is like contentious. People are mad at it, but it's more like an underlying code thing that people are mad about. It's a beautiful editor. So I
I
used
think
that, and
Notion
then
uses TipTap too.
they might, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically
It's
the
it's
same.
running it's running all the word processor.
Yeah,
Like everybody was like, oh, this also like TipTap uses all of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
So
it's
this
nice.
so
It's
it's
easy to
an easy
use.
editor, but does it match one to one to the email?
Yeah, yeah. So I was able to use this library called View Email and like edit both GutenTap and View Email until I had a one-to-one match between the components, which is interesting. It was a little tricky, and it's not exactly how you're supposed to use TipTap, so I was a little nervous to do it. Like you should just display the raw component in the TipTap editor. That's how I've used it before to do like page builders and stuff.
Mhm.
But I couldn't do that. mostly because of how emails render totally differently. So it took a lot of time to get a one-to-one match, and that's why there's features people want, like images and stuff, that aren't in.
Yeah,
And that's because I got the core of what like makes an editor for text. I got that to a one-to-one match, and now I'm working on adding other stuff.
nice. So you got monitoring, broadcast, editor. Anything else you can think of, like in terms of features?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's still early. I had a logs feature that's actually not in the latest couple of releases, but it's about to come back. I'm like changing the core of how that works. But basically, you want to know like how many emails you sent is useful to know, but it's also useful to know like how many requests have I made? And that's a separate thing because you might make one request that sends 100 emails, you know?
Mhm.
And how are those requests doing? Like it's more of you're trying to investigate the communication layer between 00 and your application. Um, and then there's your email can get bounced or something, and you might want to know why. So I want to pull that into the logs thing too. So it's not just like
Just
you
a
can
log.
view the
There's like
email and see that it's
analysis,
bounced. Yeah. But also have a log that's like more detailed attached to it.
like interactive. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then is there like any analytics feature or something?
Not yet. There's not much around that. And part of that is because I don't, I'm kind of stuck and I could use advice on this actually, because a lot of the companies approaching me are bigger. Um, Analytics is tricky to do when you have like millions of emails stored.
Mhm.
And I kind of don't know if I should just provide like a 30-day recap or something,
Mhm.
because that's useful to everyone at any size, or if I should have like searchable analytics and that'll be good up to a certain size. And then if you like want to be searching like billions of rows, you can build basically another layer that uses this thing called DuckDB. And I could build all that out, but I probably would want to sell that as like
Separate.
an add-on or another
Yeah, and
package, because
add-on.
that's like
I
a
think
significant
add-ons,
amount of work.
yeah, I think add-ons uh in one's products are the way to increase
Yeah.
LTV,
Yeah. I think,
you know?
yeah.
And in terms of analytics, like most people care about like the percentages. They don't even care about they just want to know that the pipeline is working and at what point in the pipeline is
Right.
there, discrepancy that they can go and fix and optimize.
Yeah.
All right. If you're thinking about the customer journey, right? What is the inciting incident? So these AWS DevOps guys, like at what point will they think this the way we're sending email is just not working? We need to look for a new solution. What needs to happen for them to have that kind of thought?
I think a lot of people are there. I think a lot of people don't use SES even if they're AWS guys.
Right?
Um, so I think it might be appealing to them to just be like, hey, do you want to move your email to where everything else is? Because you're probably not there now.
Not what you can
Um,
say. It's what needs to happen. So, for example, remember when you moved to Spain? The
yeah,
inciting incident was the backing up of the suit, right? Like that
yeah,
was an extreme pain point that you were like,
right.
enough, done. We need to find a solution, right?
Yeah,
And that kind of push you to action.
yeah,
So, in the same way, what needs to happen at the current, like, I'm U-Haul, right? And
yeah,
I'm sending emails, transactional emails, promotional
yeah.
emails, all this stuff, right? Is there a point in time where the way I'm doing things currently is painful and I'm like, I need to find a new way of doing this?
Yeah, it depends. I think there's a lot of those points. Like let's say you're a smaller
Let's
company and you
explore,
started
yeah.
with
Yeah.
SES.
Mhm.
You might build like your transactional emails out. You might just write the code for the email and then you're sending them through SES. And then your company grows a little bit and they hire a marketing team, and now your marketing team wants to write the emails, which is pretty normal, even for transactional emails.
Yeah.
That's a point where if you went with just SES, you're going to be like, fuck, we need something
Mhm.
else. Our marketing team is not going to write the code and they're not going to monitor it in SES. Um,
Okay, that's one very, very good storyline to
okay.
target. You know what else?
Another one, the DevOps. Let me get them real quick.
uh,
Another point you might hit that is when you want to switch from sending just transactional emails to broadcast style emails in SES. Because like I said, you might like expect to be able to search a list of contacts. Say, you know, say you're a nonprofit or a church or something, and
mhm.
Danny told you in person to remove his email from your contact list, so you need to like go in there and remove it. You'd want to be able to search for him, you know? I think that's like
Fantastic.
one of the most common use cases, and AWS falls there. So it's really like anytime if you're using SES, anytime your company expands enough where the only person interacting with emails isn't the developer anymore, like there's more than just the developer interacting with emails, you're going to need something on top of SES. Um,
But see how the market is changing now? The target market is changing from DevOps to DevOps working with marketing.
yeah, true, true.
So what are more of these transitions? So we have from uh, developers using SES to marketing needs to write the emails. That's one.
Yeah.
You have transactional to broadcast.
Hmm.
That's another storyline. Is there any other things like that?
Um, yeah, so it's also nice, like if you start sending from a few applications using the same SES account, um, you'll hit a point where you'll want to, and Double Zero doesn't actually do this right now, full disclosure, but it's like it's one of the
Features you want to have?
immediate next goals. Um, you'll want to filter by like your application or what email you use to send. And you can do that on SES, I think, right now. You have to add on like a monitoring service on top of it that AWS provides, and then you'll be able to do some of this. But even that's bad. And that's weird that that's bad because that seems like AWS's like main use case is like or SES's main use case is like I have a few applications sending emails. Help
So
me
single app to
identify which ones
multi-app
are.
is one of those things, or single list to multi-list, or
Yes, single app to multi-app. So say like say you're
yeah,
I don't know. What
Atlassian, like they have Jira and then they
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
another
yeah.
company,
Exactly.
and they
Right.
want to segment that
Right.
in some sort of way. Uh, I like it. We have a couple of things going. Moving on, right? If everything went right, this keeps growing, everything is going right, you build the right features for the right people, and what does Double Zero look like at peak maturity?
Yeah, so that's I don't have like grandiose plans. That's why my drawing was just me at the beach. Like I would
Yeah, yeah,
love
but just kind of separate yourself a little bit from the company
yeah.
and just think about what does the company look like?
Yeah, I think it just looks pretty much how it is now. Maybe there's like a couple add-ons or like we talked about.
Yeah.
But I think that just a piece of software that eventually is complete and just sits out there like any other product, you know, and
Mhm.
hopefully I can make a good amount of money on that to here's the thing that I did like some math on, you know, you sell you like at $250 you only need to sell like 10,000 or something. What does 10,000 equal? I think that's like
Uh,
2.5 million or something.
yeah, 250. What's 10,000 with the two zeros? Yeah, 2.5 million.
Yeah. So if I can sell, you know, that much, something like that,
But
and then
that's
it's just
that's that's
complete.
not but that's not enough. Uh, like two 10,000. because think about it like this, right?
Mhm,
You're saying you're targeting Forbes 500 or whatever.
mhm.
Let's,
Well,
go with this
sure.
assumption. Let's go with this assumption that that is the best customer, right?
Okay.
Are there 10,000 companies, that are at that level? Because you're not, you're just selling it once and then
Yeah.
maybe renewing a license. But is that kind of sustainable? I don't think so. I don't think 10,000 is a realistic number of customers for this, to be completely honest with
I think it is, honestly. I'm pretty confident in that.
you. Yeah.
Mostly
But
because
yeah.
like you were saying, you do need to like niche down and target a market. But I think a lot of that stuff is because a lot of deals are really bad. You need to sell to one specific person, you need to hit all of their needs perfectly.
But why isn't it like an
Where
annually renewing license? Like, why don't you think like that? Because that's 200 million in a year.
Yeah, mostly because I think it'll be done at one point, and it's like, what am I getting them to renew for? They just won't install a new one. You know what I mean?
Oh, but let's say you do, because you're making all these updates and you're giving it away for free.
Sure. Yeah, but I think I'll be done with like let's say I do a 2 year rolling license, which is pretty normal. I think in 2 years it's done. So like if I was selling a rolling license, it's I
But
really do. I don't think it's that complicated of software. Like I've built and finished products for companies all the time. You just don't
but
release them to the public,
what
but they
about
become like
the service part? Like, what do you think that's gonna look like? The service arm of 00. Like, if I'm U-Haul and I'm like, hey, Levi, I need you
yeah,
to come in and you know
right.
migrate all this
Yeah.
email stuff to 00. What are you charging
See,
for
that
that?
kind of sucks. That's why that's kind of why I just want to keep the price low and sell a lot of them. Because you know what I mean? Like, it's funny because there is an immediate appeal to these bigger Fortune 500 companies, but if you're a small developer that bought ShipFast, for instance, why
Hmm.
would you not buy an email thing and not worry about that either in the future, you know?
I
So I
just think
think,
it's a matter of, oh, you're saying the indie hacker market is going to be bigger, you
I just
know.
think, I think that there are 10,000 people out there that'll buy it, whether
I
8,000 of
understand.
them are
I
indie
understand you're
hackers or,
saying there's 10,000 people out there, but it's a matter of who are these 10,000 people? Because it's easier for you to identify who the 10,000 people are and then go seek them out than saying, I'm just going to build this and promote it to everybody. And hopefully 10,000 people are out there because of the numbers. You can,
here's,
it's not a good way of approaching marketing. You know what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
Because
So I
you're
think with
gonna write watered down messages. That's the thing. Like, if you say I am going for the indie hacker community, right? Or the kind of
See, I think
solopreneurs.
that's not true. Because like my message doesn't have to be because my message is ownership, right? And that appeals to who it appeals to. And those people
But that's not a
like
pain point. That's your message now, but that's not a converting message because it's not a pain point that is immediately obvious
I disagree.
to.
So like working at somewhere like U-Haul, they don't want do you think U-Haul wants Resend to have its emails? Fuck no.
No, but I don't think they're
It's
thinking about.
non-negotiable. They won't even think about it.
But
It's not even on the table.
that's U-Haul, right? And
Sure.
they know that pain point.
Right. But
But
I think a lot of people know that pain point. Because do
I
you want Resend to have your emails?
I don't mind,
But a lot of people do. And like
but I don't know the
you either
risks.
mind or you don't.
What I'm saying is I don't know
Sure.
the risks of that.
Sure, but that's why the message is teaching the benefit of ownership more than it's like I need to sell to these Fortune
100%.
500
And then
companies.
what I'm saying is when you're talking to an indie hacker and you're explaining risks, is not like talking to U-Haul and explaining risks or teaching them risks. You gotta meet people at their level of awareness, and then raising their awareness to the level of your solution. And that is, you know, how you approach market. It's not a uh, it's not like I don't know. Like I feel like you're pushing back, and then it's like, oh, I disagree, but this is how marketing is done. It's
Yeah,
like
I just feel like the part I'm pushing back on is you're like there isn't like if you market it to Fortune 500 companies, there's not 10,000 buyers there.
that's what I'm
And
saying.
I just disagree because I think from Fortune 500 down to indie hackers, there's a message of ownership that's easy to resonate, that is easy to teach to people of all levels. Like, so you
Yeah,
only
there's a
need to get
universal way of
burned.
saying it for sure. I'm just saying, sitting at the point of understanding all the markets and identifying them, and then creating the messages for all of them is a more powerful position than just saying I want to just write about the universal uh, problems of ownership. Because, uh, for example, let's say somebody writes, uh, developers, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. And someone says, hey, Levi, this is how you fix your one, two, three. Which one are you more prone to listening to?
Sure, yeah,
The Levi one, right?
sure,
And that's targeting in a nutshell. So like, from that total abstraction, the people that are interested in a generic message are not the same as when you say, hey, indie hacker with a, who just bought Shipfast. Guess what? You have, it's just it's just a matter of showmanship, right? It's
sure,
who is what is going to grab attention. It's not about,
sure,
is this a universal problem or not. That is an argument I'm sure you can make in like 3 sentences. Like, hey, this is the problem with not owning your shit and the risks that you and whatever. But who's going to listen to that, packaged in this like dry way? Not many people. That's where the
sure.
showmanship of marketing comes in, where you're like, hey, boo, shock, stop the scroll, da, 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 da. Like,
Yeah,
so it's not, I'm not trying to say there's not 10,000 people that probably everybody who sends email can use 00, right? And that's a huge market.
sure, yeah.
But it's just a matter of the intentionality of your marketing has to
If I
be.
had to reach just one market, then the market I would go after is like anyone who has a WordPress website. Because to some extent, I think those people are already converted. Like I think in the developer world, um WordPress users and developers are kind of treated as like, I don't know, like they couldn't cut it or something. Like I don't really know how to describe it, but like second class, like
Mm.
JavaScript developers do not want to interact with WordPress people or hear their ideas or problems or help them or release plugins for WordPress or do any of
Mm.
that. And it's weird. I think it's like a PHP hatred and stuff. But something I ran a meetup, and one of the people that helped me with my meetup was a guy that ran a WordPress meetup, so I'd attend his
Mm.
all the time. And like those people have the web figured out on a level that I think JavaScript people might never understand. Um,
But
and
there we
a
go.
lot
But
of
you
it,
see how it's different to appeal to that kind of
sure, yeah, yeah,
target. And,
yeah,
and that's all I'm talking about. I'm not trying to say that you're not going to find 10,000 people for your thing. I'm just saying,
sure,
if I'm going to think about Forbes 500, that's 500 teams, right?
yeah,
And oh, let's expand it to the Forbes 5,000. That's still 5,000 teams,
right. But
5,000
then you're
instances.
halfway there.
Yeah, then you're halfway there. But what are the probability that you're going to get all 5,000 teams, right? That
Yeah, probably
then
not
that
high, but
that yeah, then that kind of plays in. So it's like, how do we pick the right
yeah,
pie, or whatever, to kind of go after, so we can
I think
capture a
yeah, I
significant
think
amount of.
I should have said this earlier. I've made thoughts to appeal to the WordPress crowd.
Yeah.
That's why I used an editor that looks like GutenTap because
Uh-huh.
they're used to that. Because most WordPress companies, when you talk to a company and you're like, "Why are you still on WordPress?" They're like, "Because
Mm.
I can host it on Bluehost for $25 a month, and Magento is like,
Yeah.
a paid plugin, and I own it, and like my business makes 200 million a year, and we pay $200 in fucking
Yeah,
hosting costs and
exactly.
shit.
Yeah.
Um, they have it all figured out. And it's so funny. I talk about this online all the time. I'm like, this is how businesses think. And developers who have mostly been employed by venture capital funded companies are like, that's not how any business thinks. And you're like, dude, you were in you were in such a different space than you think you were in. So yeah, I think WordPress people are already converted on a lot of what I'm saying. There's a
Yeah.
lot of them. They're easy to talk to, because they, like I said, they see the benefit. I'm making things that appeal to their sensibilities.
Mhm. I like it.
And a lot
I
of
like
them
it.
are
Yeah.
developers themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I can kind of see the possibilities. If you're gonna think about, what does a 5-star experience look like? Describe that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's good. Analytics are a huge part of that. You brought that up earlier. I think like nailing analytics is huge. And that's why I've been kind of putting it off, because I want to make sure it's done very well. Um, because it needs to be a place where the marketing team gets value. And even more so than just displaying like bounces, you need like a lot of data there for a marketing team to get value from it. I think there's a huge opportunity there, because I think there's stuff that's made for developers, and I think there's stuff that's made for marketing team. That's why Resend and MailChimp are like totally different. But yeah, so I think like a 5-star experience is like nailing large amounts of data for marketing teams to be able to look at, an editing experience for marketing teams to be able to write and deliver the emails or make templates or whatever. And then really, really powerful tools for developers to tie this into any type of application. Um,
Amazing.
so a good API.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like anyone's nailing all of those. And it's weird because it's not that hard. It's people have different, or companies have different incentive structures, like we've been hinting at this whole time.
Yeah.
Um, when my incentive structure is sell this to 10,000 people, I want to make a broad reaching like thing that ties teams together, so that anyone in any company can see this, find features that appeal to them, and then try to sell it to the people that need to make the decision.
Yeah.
Um, where most SaaS companies have that infinite growth mindset, and they're like, how do I milk, like what feature can I add that milks a little bit more money out? How can we change this structure a little bit?
Mhm.
And they're way more worried about that than they are like making their API good.
I like it. And then if you don't think of a $6 experience, what is that?
Yeah, so that's something I've thought about a lot actually. So especially if I'm going after like a WordPress market, some of these people don't know how to host Docker containers, even though they know how to host WordPress, and they've never touched an AWS experience like in their life. Um, which is why I added SST to do the AWS part for you, which is cool. But I need to go further in that direction. I think it'd be really cool if you could just buy 00 and then have me host it for you.
Hmm.
And I've talked to people about this, and they're like, "Is that a SaaS?" They're like, "You're still just talking about a SaaS," and I'm like, like a SaaS is such a different model at the core that people don't even realize like what makes a SaaS a SaaS. I feel, because like no, me hosting, I'm your host, and I sold you the software too, but that's two different things. Like I'm gonna charge you hosting costs. I'm not gonna charge you for the contacts in your email thing. And then if you want to host your application, I can do that too.
Mhm. Yeah,
It would
no,
be built on some,
it's good income. Like I feel like you need to embrace income and maybe not
yeah,
the infinite growth um kind of incentive structure, which I'm
yeah.
totally with. But like you're saying, you're hosting for them, but you can't, you got to take a little bit of profit. Like,
Oh, for sure. But it'll be
yeah,
like a flat, it'll be a predictable,
yeah,
this is how much
exactly.
I pay for hosting every year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever the SES credits, you're still gonna get billed that separately,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just paying, you're paying
Exactly.
this amount for hosting. Yeah, no, I get it. All right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a one click experience is the $6 experience. And
Yeah.
like
Which
what is this?
WordPress does too. There's like WordPress.org, you know, and you
Yeah,
can, so
exactly. And what is a $7 experience?
that would be interesting. That I feel like then you'd have to get into like services offered. And then maybe you could do something like I was talking about if you're like Beehive or someone, you'll need like an email expert running your buckets and they'll need to know rules specifically about your site. Um, you could like be that, and then that would be like an enterprise. They're going to be paying you a lot, you know. And at that point, if you're asking about company structure, so I wouldn't even want to do that. I'd want to charge enough to be able to hire people to do that.
You can
Because
do
that
that.
is,
You can
yeah,
hire people.
because if you're running that full time, like that's a full time job, just doing that for one or two companies, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You have
Um,
like kind of account managers or whatever, account developers,
yeah,
and you kind
which
of
this actually touches on something else that's like important about Double Zero. I really want developers to make money off of it. There's no reason you can't host this and charge your clients to send email through you
mhm.
the way like all these agencies are they're putting companies on resend. Like just buy this and put them on this and charge them directly. Like you've already paid me. You can figure out whatever incentive structure works out for how you charge your clients. But when you own the software, it opens up revenue services for you. So I think if I do that well, um, there are people that can rise up and maybe be like officially embraced under the Double Zero name, and they can consult for companies that are larger. That would be a cool way to do that. And then that would
Oh, so
lean into what I was saying about running a
like
co-op.
like a school. So before we get into the co-op
Yeah,
idea, how this can grow into a co-op idea, but you're saying you can kind of be like a certified like
yeah,
email bucket manager,
right,
and then you kind of or a double zero holistic
right.
guy with that, at levels or something, and then maybe you run like a school with certification, and you kind of just shoot it once, right?
Yeah,
And you have like a school that gives you a certification for
yeah,
whatever, you know,
yeah,
five hundred
exactly.
dollars a pop or $1,000 a pop or something like that.
Right, yeah. Because and that's something the WordPress community gets right too. They know that their clients need ongoing support for all this stuff. And because the ownership model is different in the WordPress community, you typically have like a webmaster that you pay to update your plugins, and he's like on retainer. And a lot of these guys, I've met a lot of them at the WordPress meetup I mentioned earlier, they make their own plugin. They charge monthly or an upfront fee or some sort of retainer. They put that plugin into all of their clients' websites, and they figured out how to make recurring revenue off of being an agency, which is what everyone should be doing. Like if you've had a dozen clients, you should have some sort of recurring revenue from them. And that's something I failed at in my career, and it sucks because I know
Mm.
people that have done it right.
Yeah, like a good retainer, for sure.
But yeah,
um
you could easily be on retainer to run your client's email. Even if you all you have to do, like if you have the level of knowledge to make marketing sites and you tie Double Zero to the marketing site, you can turn that into $50 a month per customer easy. Um,
no, it's I love what you're doing. It's just a matter of this kind of stuff that we're doing right now, to kind of have a path, instead of just
right.
like shooting in the dark, you
For
know.
sure.
Uh, if you're gonna think about 100 years from now and kind of uh, like let's anthropomorphize a little double zero, and double zero dies, and there's like a funeral, right? you
Okay.
know, uh, what would the biggest fan say in that funeral? Like if they were like asked to
Yeah.
say something.
So we touched on this in DMs, but really what I would love, and this is what I meant by the banner in the drawing, selling software is cool again. I literally mean selling it, like not doing SaaS. And I really like what DHH did with Campfire to try to bring that back on a large scale because there's not like a lot of there's companies doing it still, but he was like one of the bigger ones to throw his hat back in that ring.
Mhm.
And what I think would be really cool for the movement, like it's cool that DHH did it, but seeing someone get rich off the model is huge for the movement. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like DHH is already rich. He can take these risks. Campfire can fail. That's fine.
Mhm.
Watching someone take the risk and it pay off, that's what starts other people being like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna jump in on
Mhm.
this. Um, which yeah, is related to that like first follower thing we were talking about. But so yeah, if Double Zero had a funeral and someone was
Mhm.
like, I watched this get made and that made
Mhm.
me realize you can sell software and I did the same thing. That would be sick.
Nice.
And I keep trying to give away ideas for free. Nobody's taking them. I feel like
You
I'm gonna
like it
finish
because
Double Zero
yeah,
and then do some idea that I've been talking about for the past year. I'll release that next. And then there's gonna be 10 copycats right after. Like
yeah, yeah,
it's gonna take me actually making it, and then everyone's gonna get off their ass and make the thing I've been talking about. But
yeah. No, nobody like everybody's looking for credibility. No
yeah,
one's just judging an idea based on its merit and just being like, you know what, let me try this out. People want
yeah,
proven stuff. That's why all this like bullshit MRR shit works.
yeah,
It's like, oh, this
yeah,
is how much I made. This is how much you can.
yeah.
You know, yeah. Have you seen the old Spartacus? Well,
I
okay,
haven't.
so there's the scene. The story of Spartacus. It's
Yeah,
basically, like the
right.
slave gladiator that freed
Hmm.
the slave gladiators. So he like stood for freedom. And then there's a scene in the movie where, the Romans are like making a deal with the army, right? They capture them or
Hmm.
whatever. And they're like, if you tell us who Spartacus is,
Yeah,
we'll spare the rest of the army. And
I
then
have seen this. Yeah,
yeah, and then I am Spartacus, I am
yeah,
Spartacus.
right.
And like what is that version for you? Like if you had like the Levi army, right? What kind of ideal would people wanna sacrifice their life for? Like, hey, no, don't harm the leader, take me instead. Like what is the I am Levi stand for?
Yeah, I think Double Zero is cool and stuff, and but I don't think that that's really that level of like wow.
Mhm.
I do think if this could grow into what becomes like a larger co-op and you see people like make a lot of money just working a normal job, not having to take crazy entrepreneurial risks, and you can show that like when you get the right people together, even ice cream servers can be rich type of
Mhm.
like message. I think that's huge. I think that's when people
Can you
are
simplify that
actually
idea
realizing.
like as like a banner? Like what is that? Well, like this co-op idea, right? You know,
Yeah.
I it, what is it standing for?
Um the so are you familiar with like the concept of being alienated from your labor?
Explain.
So like basically every job you've ever worked, you aren't rewarded the direct fruits of your labor. You're rewarded some portion that's like picked for you. Um that's not do you like Theo Vaughn? Do you know who that guy is?
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Okay, cool. Theo Vaughn gave the best explanation from like a normal person's point of view of alienation, and I don't even think he realized he was doing it, but it was beautiful. He talked about how like you used to like we grew up in a well, we didn't grow up, but like we're living in the ghosts of a society where like even our last names are like, you know, Fletcher because like your dad made arrows.
Hmm.
He was the Fletcher, and that's just what he gets called. Um, and you would be like, I own this armchair. My grandpa built it. He worked at the armchair factory and he was able to bring one home for us. And there was like this direct connection to your material goods. And there was this direct benefit at some points when unions were strong, mostly, where you put in your time at the company and they've rewarded you with a Rolex and retirement. And there was like a pride that Americans had for these companies. Like Ford built
Mhm.
its reputation off of taking care of people like that for a certain time. And then what happened in Detroit happens. So basically, we're growing up in a time of like complete alienation. Those people were already alienated because they weren't like directly receiving the profits, but we could see like a connection between the work we did and the community it built. Um, and we're in a time where we're almost like completely devoid of that. And it's really weird working in tech because you're making like dumb shit most of the time, like Uber for cats. And
Mhm.
uh, there's all this money coming in, but you've created no value for the world, and you can like feel that.
So you're saying the alignment of like craft identity and compensation is like this ideal?
Yeah, yeah. Because now everything you buy is made in some company, like some country you can't pronounce the name of. And,
Wow.
like we all work in call centers and there's just like nobody's really tied to their craft anymore. And when you're not tied to your craft and you don't get the benefit of your profits, you're completely alienated from what you do day to day. And that's why we hate our jobs.
I love it. It's such a good ideal, you know. Describe the most genius artist.
The most genius artists. Definitely MF Doom. Easy answer.
Nice. What do you love about
Um,
MF?
Man, I love everything about him. So, do you know too much about his story?
No,
Okay.
I like the lyrics, but I didn't get too deep into MF.
So, Doom was in a group. I believe there was a few groups, but the big one before he was Doom was KMD, and that was with his brother. And his brother passed away in like a very tragic and somewhat odd, uh, like hit and run. Um, and then he took some time off rap, and then when he came back as Doom, and he came back like with a vengeance on the rap game, and he wanted to like expose people for being fake. Uh he wanted to show that like the like just a lot of stuff. Like he's so boisterous in like odd ways to show like the fakeness of that, but also like how I don't know, appealing a figure like that is. Like he's multifaceted, you know. When
Like
when you're
satire.
in yeah, yeah, deep satire, deep a lot of people too don't understand. Like when you first listen to Doom, you might be like, "Oh, this is kind of corny. Like it sounds like old rap that's like ba 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 da 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 da." Like sometimes his flow kind of comes off that way. So like to a novice listener, I think you can like write that off as like very simplistic. But then you actually realize like his flow wasn't what was impressive about him. He didn't have like a Kendrick Lamar style like butteriness. Well, he
Mhm.
did. He did it, but in a different way. What he was doing, he would layer such complex rhyme schemes like nobody's ever been able to do. Um, like if you look, you can look up highlighted videos where they highlight the
I've seen them.
rhymes. They're
They're amazing.
so dense and
Yeah.
crazy. And then you realize like then you realize like on accordion that that song the beat to it is an accordion and it's so funky and weird and his timing on it and like how he's delivering the rhymes are just like next level. Um and then the people he collabs with like Madlib for Mad Villainy
Mhm.
was a wild genius like that too. He was like writing, he like flew to Brazil and they played some song on the plane and he had to like write the beat down to like steal that for a hook. Like yeah, they're Doom is on another level and like anytime he collaborates with someone he brings them up to that level too, which I think is incredible.
So
Like some of
describe
his
that,
art.
because that's the next question. Is like describe the most genius duo artist. Like
Okay.
what is what is that?
Yeah. So I think that can be seen. with what I just talked about, Mad Lib and Doom on Mad Villainy, that album is like a lot. Most people don't argue that that's Doom's greatest album, and Doom has this really weird way of like using really odd samples to tell a story, and he uses like clips from like old Fantastic Four cartoons and stuff.
Hmm.
And DJ Madlib is like incredible at doing the same. So uh Doom with his like rhyme schemes and like multi-layered writing was able to pass off his ideas of like this is how I want it to like sound more or less to like a real savant of like finding these old beats and hooks and
Hmm.
making them come together in a way that like is a level that isn't it's always good in Doom stuff, but on Mad Villainy it's like a whole nother like there's this song that's just an opening from Fantastic Four cartoons with a crazy beat in
Hmm.
the back, like nobody raps on it. And even that story is told so well, like just the clips they picked and stuff. And that it's the opening one, and it's like uh clips of them talking about two ultimate villains coming together to
Hmm.
make something great. And like it's crazy that they were even able to find stuff like that, and then to have that be the opening of the album was just like incredible.
It's great. If you're gonna have like your logo on a hat,
My what?
your logo that you still haven't created yet, that I can't wait
Yeah.
for you to create.
Okay.
Okay,
On a
the double,
hat, you said?
yeah, yeah. Why would
Okay.
what are they repping really if they're wearing that hat?
What are they rapping? Yeah, so I like that's funny because for Double Zero and for the co-op idea, like the whole thing is ownership, right? Like either owning your emails at a small level or like owning the benefits of the work you do.
Right.
Um, so I think that
And the
is like
co-op
the
should have
key.
the double zero logo in the middle.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, you need to figure out this double zero. You need to go, like hang out, and just like with a sketchbook and just go nuts,
For sure.
you know.
I
Okay,
need to, yeah.
describe why you're the best option if you're gonna like pitch someone like DevOps guy. Hey, I'm thinking of using Recent. I'm thinking of you using whatever, or not even the DevOps guy. Like just
Yeah,
any developer who wants to build something serious and kind of uh have that right. Be
yeah,
associated with the product that's beautiful, and he wants to pick or she wants to pick the best option, and
yeah.
they're like, tell me why I should use double zero for my email provider.
I think a big thing there is like one, you don't want to tie yourself like you something as critical as your email. I feel the same way about people are like tying their auth to third party companies. Something that crucial, like you want to own your users table and you want to own your path of communication to your users, right? And email is probably the most crucial, like the easiest way to communicate with your users most times. Um, so right away, I would say ignore anything that's not like bare bones a sender, like SES or SendGrid. Because going with any layer on top of those that's a SaaS is insane. They might not be around 2 years from now. They might be around, but they've totally changed their pricing model to squeeze you out, whatever. And you've built like layers and layers of custom code just to interact with them. So that's crazy. So I think you should think about like, do I want to go with SES or SendGrid or something like that? Because at least they have some longevity. If you end up picking SES, you're gonna not have features that you're gonna want to have, and you either need a developer to build those custom, or you need a solution for that. And there are other people, like I said, that have started pivoting to be more like what I'm doing. Um, but we've talked about this in the past. I rewrote this. We talked about it earlier in this call too. I rewrote this from JavaScript to Elixir because I was like, oh, this needs to be like so easy to host and so scalable, and it needs to be a no-brainer. Like people need to be able to install it in 5 minutes. Um, Other people haven't made the sacrifice to change their entire infrastructure to be built around how easy can I make this for you to do this.
Yeah.
And I've already done that, and every feature I build keeps that in mind. Like my goal, especially because some of these people are trying to do SaaS with an open source model. That's going to do the same thing I keep saying. Like, you're going to cannibalize your open source. You're going to make it harder to host just to get people onto your SaaS. You can't build incentive structures that are toxic into your business. You know what I mean? Because you're always going to fall for
It's
it.
yeah, 100%. And then, like you're saying, my incentives kind of deliver the best experience for you,
Yeah,
long-term experience, right? And so that whole spiel, right? If you can boil it down to like 10 words around that,
yeah,
like in one pitch,
yeah,
what would that look like? Like, hey, I want to buy uh email. You should buy double O because
yeah. I guess the core of it is at every level, we're incentivized to give you. That's the hard part. What am I giving you? Like email you own, but also it's good. Like it's on the level of these SaaS companies that have like millions of funding. So it's like a beautiful, like a world-class industry leading level of experience that you can just own.
yeah, that's I think that's kind of the
Because we're kind of used to like free, a lot of open source software is like, it just doesn't really focus on the user experience, you know? It like provides the bare bones to do the job a lot of the time.
yeah.
Um,
And in terms of you and your brand, right? You
mhm.
know how like Batman, you send out the bat signal
Yeah, sure.
when there's crime, you know, and Batman shows up, saves the day. What is your
Yeah.
bat signal? Like when should you, you know, kind of appear and save the day in what circumstance?
Um, Anytime like a smaller to medium sized company is like, and I see this all the time on Twitter, they're like, we're being crushed by our fucking emails, dude. Like, I have to send emails to make money because it's where all of my conversion comes from, which is true for like a lot of people. And then they're like, but you know, I have a list of 200,000 people now, so every email provider wants to charge me thousands of dollars per month. It gets crazy. And
That's
some of these
for
people are just running newsletters.
yeah, that's for your company, right? But for you,
Oh, me
your
personal.
personal brand, like
I love whenever people are selling stuff for real that you can own. I like when people like uh
I'm writing, sorry, like I'm not in,
no worries.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to think. Like yeah, for me it's about so like if I so to get at the core of what I've been hinting at this whole time, I'm like essentially a socialist at heart, right? And I think that people should own the means to production, which is the opposite of alienation. It's when like you oh, when you own the means of production, you own the tools you work with to be able to make the things that you then still own and can sell, you know, typically cooperatively. Um, so
Ownership.
to
Yeah, I
the
love
first
it.
step is
Yeah.
owning your tools, right? Like, and we don't own any of our fucking tools. So how are we ever gonna get to the point where we own a majority stake in our company or whatever? We own a democratically allotted stake in our company if we don't even own the tools that we're using to build the company in the first place. So the ownership model is broken like top to bottom, and it needs to be fixed at the tool level first. So that's what I'm really passionate about right now. Is like if anyone's making and selling software, fuck yeah, like I want to buy it even if I don't need it.
Uh, if you're gonna think about like the next three steps, what are the next three steps?
I need to get a lot of more people like just to know my name. Because people get excited and they're doing a lot of marketing for me, I've noticed. Um, I think a lot of that we touched on this earlier, it comes in the form of education, especially if I'm targeting like a mid-tier wide net for like developers from like WordPress to Astro people.
Mhm.
Uh, Teaching them like how easy it is to own your email platform, but also like maybe I'll teach you how to build a site from scratch, and the email is like a part of that, you know? That's an idea I've been toying around with because I used to like mentor people and stuff, so I can teach. And
Yeah.
I think touching on Gary Vaynerchuk too, let's come back
Hmm.
to him. He talks about the like jab jab right hook
Hmm.
idea. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is like give before you take. Um, so I think there's a lot of value I could provide in like just teaching basic coding shit, and then at the end be like, I also sell some software.
It's not the best use of your time. So the way
You don't think
this
so?
whole, yeah, the whole thing, this is all about you, and then I'm gonna send you a growth like recommendations from my
Mhm.
side.
Okay.
After I think about this. So awareness. Let's call that one of the steps is awareness. What's the next step? Let's say people know you. Then what?
Um, well, before I worry too much about awareness, what I'm currently worried about is just feature complete. Like it's still missing things that I consider it not a 1.0 until these things are in. Um,
Feature completion.
so
All right.
yeah, getting there is huge.
What else?
Then awareness, second. Um, and then third would be like I really want to turn it into an ecosystem. Like I was saying, I would love to teach people how to get recurring revenue from their clients um, using double zero.
Okay. Levi,
Yeah.
last last exercise. I
Okay.
want you to take a new sheet of paper.
Okay.
Okay. And think about the same thing. You achieved all your dreams.
Okay.
I want you to draw your impact at that moment.
Okay. Ready? You
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah, let's go.
I think you'll like this.
Sure.
I don't know. I wonder. It's like very now. 1 second. We've been talking too long, man. Sun went down. Okay.
All right. Describe.
Okay. So in here, you can see out a window. Out there, I'm still hanging out with my wife and my dogs at the beach.
Okay.
But inside, we've achieved more. We've grown. We're now a
Okay.
co-op, and they have a giant pile of money that they're voting on how to divvy up between them.
Amazing. All right, well, that's it. We're done.
Good stuff.